Hello to everyone. Welcome and thank you for registering to this webinar organized by the ICLEI World Secretariat for potential applicants to the TAP, the Transformative Actions Program. This webinar will be about introducing and explaining the TAP. I am Annabelle Roblin, Junior Officer at the World Secretariat. I'm working on project development regarding the TAP, but also, of course, COP21, where ICLEI and partners are organizing a TAP pavilion. I will present this webinar today together with Atte Oksanen, who is Junior Officer on Advocacy and COP21, also here at the World Secretariat. Atte, maybe you would like to say a few words to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hello, welcome to everyone, and thank you, Annabelle. And so we'll be going through together the application process and the application form briefly later on in this webinar.
Thank you, Atte. So Luisa Weiss from the Knowledge Management team here at the World Secretariat is also with us at the beginning of the session, and she will say a few words now about technical matters. Luisa?
Thank you, Annabelle, for this introduction. So also from my side, a warm welcome to this webinar. I just want to briefly introduce you to how we're using the system here. So for the duration of the presentations given, you will be muted. However, we scheduled for a question and answer session in the end. So that means whenever questions come up for you now during the presentations, you can type these questions into the question box, and we will then take care for them later on during the question and answer session. Alternatively, just stay with us and raise your hand later in the question and answer session. We will then be happy to unmute you and engage in a discussion with you concerning your questions and your input that you may have for us. If you have technical problems, please also type them into the question box. We will try to assist you as far as we can. Enjoy this webinar with us.
Thank you very much, Luisa. So let's start then. So this is the outline of today's webinar, which will last approximately 1 hour, with first of all a 20 to 25-minute presentation, which will take you through the TAP, introducing and explaining the concept of the TAP and its meaning for ICLEI's work and strategy. Then the content of the program, that is the 4 pillars of the TAP, and then some general information on the TAP 2015 application and selection process, that is the selection of TAP projects in the run-up to COP21 next December. This will include information on the timeline of the process, on the selection criteria, on the application form, and on the selection process. And then the second part of this webinar will be a question and answer session where you will have the opportunity to answer your questions and we will answer them. So as a complement to this webinar, we will also send you afterwards a link to a presentation given by Yunus Arikan, who is the head of global policy and advocacy here at the ICLEI World Secretariat. And this presentation will give you some more background information on ICLEI's advocacy work towards COP21. So first of all, what is the TAP? The TAP is a 10-year program, the purpose of which is to accelerate the implementation of climate actions of local and subnational governments in the crucial pre-2020 and post-2020 phases, while raising the level of ambition at all levels. So more specifically, the TAP will seek to improve access to existing capital flows to cities and regions, but also to catalyze additional capital flows from both public and private investors. So now a bit of background information. The TAP is a response to a previous attempt by local and subnational governments through the Local Government Climate Roadmap to push for a 10-year action program to be adopted within the UN FCCC framework. This proposal was put forward in the Nantes Declaration in 2013, and so now ICLEI and partners are launching the TAP outside of the UN FCCC process, hoping that, of course, at some point in the future, the TAP will feed into this UN FCCC process. So the TAP has two separate but interrelated missions. One is political, and one is, you could say, the climate mission of the TAP. So on the political level, the aim of the TAP is to actively advocate for better and quicker access to larger amounts of climate finance for cities and regions. Why? Because this is where climate change can be tackled effectively, as we know, and because effective climate action at all levels has become urgent, given the challenges linked to climate change, of course, but also increasing urbanization. So by engaging in the TAP, local governments and their networks will really pursue and intensify their efforts to bridge the gap between negotiations and the implementation process. How? By putting forward these proposals of transformative action. So this leads us to the climate mission of the TAP, which is actually that the TAP will aim to mobilize cities and regions to design these transformative and bankable climate actions, but also, and most importantly, the TAP will assist the pre-brokering between subnational authorities and financing bodies where this is possible. So before I continue, then maybe I should say a few words as a summary and to avoid any misunderstanding or ambiguity about what ICLEI and partners can really do for cities and regions through the TAP. So what the TAP can do is to offer visibilities to submitted projects through both channels, two channels, sorry, so the TAP 2015 Pavilion and the TAP online platform, which I will talk about later on. Then the TAP will give the opportunity to local governments to engage more directly with representatives of the financial and business sector, who will also be invited to the pavilion. And then regarding the application process in itself, we have the capacity to assist the applicants in filling in the form, that is answering questions, providing feedback on your application to allow you to make it stronger, by providing translations as well, and this work is in progress. So now, what the TAP cannot do is, first of all, that, as I said previously, the TAP will pre-broker between cities and financing institutions, but you must note that we cannot guarantee that the projects will receive funding at the end. Then regarding the application process, we cannot gather the data for the applicants. We don't have the capacity for that, but as I said, we are available. We are completely available to answer your questions, any questions that you may have on the application process and the form. And the final point that I should stress is that the strong point of the TAP is really that it benefits from ICLEI's role as the focal point of the local government and municipal authorities constituency, which is the LGMA constituency. So ICLEI indeed plays a very strong advocacy role in different arenas, including the UN, of course. And so really it's this key position in regarding the international climate processes that allows ICLEI and partners to really play this facilitating role between cities and financing institutions. Now, how will we do that? So to achieve these two missions, the TAP will rely on two processes. First of all, a process of mobilization of key actors at local, national, and international levels. And also a process of visibilization and showcasing the climate actions already being implemented, but also the local climate potential. So this will be achieved by drawing on already existing tools, such as reporting platforms, but also, as I said previously, the TAP will have its own tools. That is the TAP online platform, which is a kind of registry of climate ambition, and the TAP pavilion. So in summary, the TAP will really guide ICLEI's work with and for cities and regions over the next 5 to 10 years, ICLEI offices will be able, through the TAP, to better connect their cities to funding opportunities. And the TAP will obviously contribute to ICLEI's political agenda towards, but also beyond, COP21. Now, turning to the content of the TAP, so you can see on your screen the 4 pillars of the TAP. So first of all, TAP project pipeline. This is the process by which every year up to 100 TAP projects are selected in the run-up to the annual COP and presented during the COP, starting this year at COP21 in December in Paris-Le Bourget. During this process, cities and regions are actively mobilized to apply to the TAP and supported in their application by the TAP team here in the World Secretariat and also regional offices. This stage is already underway. As you can see, the application started on the 5th of May. The next deadline is the 15th of July. And now, regarding the TAP platform, so before the COP, all projects submitted by cities and regions are featured on this online platform in a structured and unified format. And so the platform will centralize these projects, make them more visible, so that it can enable really financing institutions to have access to relevant information on the projects and consider financing. The third pillar is the TAP Pavilion, which is really the physical component of the program. You could say that is the space where the selected TAP projects will be presented to national delegations, international donors and financing agencies, both from the public and private sectors, during the COP. And finally, the TAP advocacy for accelerated climate action will build on previous achievements in local climate advocacy. It will diversify and strengthen it in various ways. So it will raise awareness, of course, of the potential of transformative subnational climate action. It will also deepen the dialogue with national governments, promoting effective vertical integration. It will reinforce the engagement with international and national funding bodies and development agencies, and it will also continue the coordination of information sharing and debate on local and subnational climate finance. So really the TAP advocacy work will create this essential interaction nexus with all levels of government and really also deepen the links with financing bodies. Now, turning to the TAP 2015 application and selection process. So first of all, let's have a look at the timeline of the TAP 2015 process. So, as I said, the application started early May. The 3 deadlines are the 15th of June, which is already gone. The 15th of July is the next deadline, and the final deadline will be on the 15th of August. In June, July, so really very soon, the partners of the TAP will be invited to appoint a member, both for the TAP selection panel and for the expert committee, which I will talk about later on. The selection process per se will start after the final deadline in August, and in September the selection will be made. Applicants will be notified in end of September, beginning of October, whether or not they have been successful in their application. This is also the time where the online platform will be activated in preparation to the COP. And finally, during the COP in December, November, December, the up to 100 projects will be presented in the pavilion. Now, what is a TAP project? So what we mean by TAP projects, we actually mean 2 types of project. First of all, fast-track transformers and post-2020 transformers. So these 2 types differ in 3 different respects. So first of all, on the stage they have reached, that is either they are already fully designed with clear budget and action plan and a management structure as well, or they only have the concept defined. in terms of the needs identified in terms of enabling the implementation of the project, either the projects only needs funding through investment or grants, or not only they require finance, but also additional advice and expertise in terms of capacity building, strategy development, technical and financial advice, etc. And so finally, in terms of the implementation periods, either the projects will be ready for implementation before 2020 or after 2020. And so please note that at the moment we are accepting applications for both type of projects. There is no restriction on that. Now, if we look at the selection criteria for the overall distribution of the 100 TAP projects, so we are taking into account 5 criteria. First of all, the level of transformative potential, which I will define in the next slide. Second, the regional balance, that is, we look at how actually we look for an equal distribution between the north and the south. Then we are looking at the balance of mitigation and adaptation projects, sectorial balance, that is projects in transport, in energy, in biodiversity, housing, etc. And finally, we are looking at transparency, that is how informed the different applications are. Now, if we look at individual projects, so the key aspect is that TAP applicants should have the potential to transform society, and in particular respond to 3 criteria, that is being ambitious, cross-cutting, and inclusive, as you can see on your screen. So regarding the ambitious criteria, so projects can be either first-time projects that will benefit a large proportion of the population, or there are existing projects and they will be scaled up to benefit an even larger proportion of the population. In terms of the cross-cutting criteria, so we look at how different communities will benefit from the project, and in particular disadvantaged communities, how different types of resources will benefit in terms of management, that is sustainable energy, quality, land use, procurement, etc. And finally, how the project will contribute to other subnational, national, and global sustainability goals. And finally, regarding the inclusiveness of the projects, we look at how and if the project encourages cross-departmental coordination for an effective implementation of the projects. We also look at how and if the citizens and local stakeholders are actively engaged, how the project will foster collaboration with other levels of government, and finally, how and if the private sector is actively engaged. Now, turning to the TAP application form. So Atte will now tell you more about the application process and how to access the application forms from the TAP website.
Yes, hello again to everyone. So I'll be going through with you the application process and application system. So local and subnational governments wishing to submit their projects to the TAP can do so either through the TAP offline form or through the online application process. In any case, for both, you will need to go to the TAP website, which is this one, this tap-potential.org. So as I said, you can use either the online or the offline application form. The advantage of the online system that you can see here and you can access by clicking this button right here is that after registering, you will receive login details, and you will be able to insert input, close, come back, and edit the content of the application at any given time. as you can see, you can also connect to the online platform using your Carbon login details in case you are a local or subnational government that is already registered to the Carbon Climate Registry. And all the information that you've already inserted when you registered to Carbon is filled out by us here at the ICLEI World Secretariat, so you don't have to do that again. And that also applies to the offline form, but we're still working on how to best indicate which fields do not need to be filled out a second time for those who are already registered on Carbon. And of course, the offline application form is very practical as well, especially for those whose internet connection is not so good, as you can simply download it, fill it out, then upload it again. And the content of these two application forms is of course exactly the same. Now please note that the offline application forms submitted via the website will also be uploaded by us here at the World Secretariat onto the online application system. So applicants who choose the offline option will also be given login credentials to access and edit their application later on. So I think we can, well, I'll just quickly show you that this process here on the TAP website. So for the offline form, as you can see, it's a two-step process. First, the applicant downloads the form right here by clicking this. And once the form is filled out with project details, it should be submitted to us by clicking here in the submit section and inserting some basic information here. And by uploading, by clicking this button right here, choose file. Note that you will also be required to attach some supporting documents to your application, such as greenhouse gas emissions inventory and other such documents. For the offline application form, we would prefer if you could compress all of these supporting documents into one single document and upload it by clicking this second choose file button right here. Now, that's pretty much it for the website. Now, if we take a look together at the application form itself. Now, unfortunately, we don't have time right now to go through all the fields, as you will see that there's quite a large number of them, but I'll take you through the main sections, and I would also like to take this opportunity to stress that the application form may seem quite lengthy, but it has been diligently designed to minimize the workload of applicants while still capturing the most detailed and comprehensive information on the projects. And these are the types of information that would interest financial institutions, and that's why we're asking for it, of course. So the application form contains 6 sheets. The first one is this one right here, the README sheet. And so as you can see, there's instructions here to the applicant about how the form should be filled. So we recommend that the applicant read this carefully before starting. So there's some information here regarding the form, notably the fact that the green sheets that you see here are all mandatory, and the only one that is not mandatory is the blue field here, the number 5, applicant commitments. You'll also notice that some fields are marked with an asterisk, and so these are the fields that are required. Some fields, I'll just show you again, some fields are drop-down menus, such as this one, and other ones are manual entries where you will have to type. The fields in italics, which you'll find later on somewhere here, I believe, yes, well, they are there to collect complementary information. So they're not mandatory, but they're there to enhance the value of the application. And of course, the more detailed, the better the application for us. So let's move on to the next sheet. So this is the registration sheet, and it contains basic information about the applicant, the contact point for us within your organization, political liaison, and towards the end, terms and conditions. And really, the only condition for us is that you agree that the information in the following tab, which is the TAP Overview tab, can be made public on our online TAP platform that will showcase the applicant projects. So for that reason, the next tab, the TAP Overview tab, is a very important part of the application. So the contents of this will be made public on our online TAP platform. And the idea here is that we capture really the transformative potential of your project. So this will help us with the selection process, and especially in the first screening stage. So this sheet contains also drop-down menus and manual entries, as you will see. The next sheet is the applicant profile sheet. So this is mostly background and contextual information about the applicant. So we'll be asking about GDP, socioeconomic information, etc. There is also, of course, information on the local or some national governments' climate ambitions, and these can also be detailed later on in the applicant commitment sheet. So there's sectorial information here. So you will be invited to fill in for the sectors that are applicable to you, of course, and not to anything else. The next one is really about the project itself. So there's some basic and some detailed information about the project, the concept, the management structure, and more of such detailed information to really try to show the transformative potential of the project. So we'll be looking at the expected co-benefits of the project in terms of sustainability, and once again, the applicant only fills the applicable fields and nothing else, and anything that's relevant to the project. And so you'll be able to describe here the climate potential of your project, whether it's mitigation or adaptation, the financial and technical feasibility as well of the project. Now, of course, the financial feasibility is a very important factor that financial institutions will be looking at. You'll be needing to provide some supporting documents, and as I showed you earlier, preferably you would compress them into one document, then upload them onto the site as indicated earlier. And on to the next sheet, the non-mandatory sheet, which is the applicant commitment sheets. So if the local government council has decided on specific climate targets, whether it's mitigation or adaptation, the applicant can report them in this sheet in order to show how the project submitted can help reach these targets, or to show how the commitment itself can be transformative. So as indicated earlier, once completed, the offline application form must be uploaded onto the TAP website, as I showed you right here. And after submission, the TAP team will upload your content onto the online platform and provide you with login credentials to view your application online. And as a small reminder, the next deadline is July 15th, and the one after that is August 15th. Now I'm going to hand it back to Annabelle.
Thank you very much, Atte. So final words on the selection process. So the selection process is still being defined at the moment, but what we can say for now is that the following entities will be involved. That is each TAP partner, that is local government organizations, financing institutions, civil society, NGO, etc., will appoint a representative to sit in the TAP project selection panel and an expert to sit in the expert committee. And so the principle is that the expert committee will make recommendations to the TAP project selection panel. Another key principle that will guide the selection process is the fact that we will be implementing a consensus-seeking approach. That is, there won't be any kind of strict voting system whereby a majority would win, but rather we are looking for general agreement and consensus on what a good TAP project is. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for your attention. And so if you have any questions about the TAP, the process, the application process, now is the time to ask them, and we will try our best to answer. So you can raise your hand if you have a question, or you can type directly. So I can see that Sebastian asked a few questions. So first of all, I have seen the online TAP form. Many of the fields seem to be not mandatory. Is this right, or is it still going to be updated? And second question, regarding emission inventories data, are there mandatory fields to be filled in for both the local governments and community scales? Thank you, Sebastian, for your questions. So, regarding the mandatory fields in the form, so as Atte said previously, the mandatory sheets are the one marked in green. That is the TAP overview sheet, the applicant profile sheet, the project profile sheet. These are the ones that are mandatory. Now, in each of these sheets, the fields that are marked with a star are indeed mandatory. However, you will also see, for example, that there are stars in the last sheet about commitments, which is marked in blue. So, of course, if you don't plan on filling in this sheet, then you won't have, of course, to fill in the fields in this sheet. And so, if they are not marked with a star, then not mandatory. So, of course, as we said before, the more complete the application is, the better it is for us in terms of evaluating the transformative potential of the project, and as we said, also for financing institutions to have relevant information. So we encourage applicants to provide as much information as they can on that respect.
And if I can just, Annabelle, hop in to say that the content of the offline form and the online form is supposed to be exactly the same. So whatever field is marked as mandatory in the offline form should also be in the online form. So we can, of course, we can go check the online application system that everything is functioning perfectly and that it's in line with the offline form as well. But in theory, like Annabelle said, everything that has an asterisk is mandatory. Everything that doesn't is not.
Now, regarding your second question on emission inventories data, and the fact, so the question was, are there mandatory fields, to be filled in for both the local government and community scales? So in principle, the principle is that whether you choose to report for the local government or the community, whichever scale you're choosing to report about, you should be consistent in the figures you're giving. So I hope this answered your questions. So Sebastian, what I'll do is that I'll unmute you now so that you can maybe precise your question if you wish to. Right, Sebastian, you can now talk.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, thanks. Let me introduce myself. I'm Sebastian Bonelli. I started last week as an intern in ICLEI, so I'll be helping some of the U.S. cities in this process. So that's why that's why I'm here, and that's why I was asking those questions too. So thank you very much for the presentation and also for your answers. They were actually helpful.
Okay.
Actually, I'm not being so specific because I haven't gone through all the details on the forums. It's just a perception of mine that in the online form, it looked like many of the fields were not mandatory with the star on it. It might be, I mean, just a perception that I had when I looked through it quickly.
Okay.
That's why I was wondering.
So is it still is it clear for you now?
Yeah,
okay, perfect.
It is. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question by Albert. So the question is, will the presentation slides be available? Yes, of course, indeed, we will make this webinar available to you. We will send you the recording right after, well, maybe not right after, but tomorrow at the very latest, we will send you the webinar recording along with the video I talked about earlier on. By Yunus Arakan about ICLEI's advocacy work towards COP21. Yeah. Do we have any other question? Now is the time to raise your hand or type your question. So I cannot see any other question for now. So, well, this was anyway a general introduction to the TAP. If you have more specific questions, do not hesitate to get in touch with us. You have on the slides the email address of Marie-Sophie Beyer, who is the COP21 TAP coordinator. So if you have questions specific for the TAP, you have a corresponding address, and same if you have questions more specifically about the TAP 2015 pavilion, then you can use this other email address that's indicated. Right. So now we just have to thank you very much for attending this webinar and for your attention. And of course, we are looking forward to receiving your applications, and we remain available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.